Card King, here I come. Hello, music fans, music collectors, and all hobbyists. Welcome to the Card King Sports and Variety Show. I am your host, the Catman, Brian Cataquet, a.k.a. the Card King. We are live on ABC's KMET 1490 AM.com, your number one spot right here for news and talk on the West Coast. I thank everyone for tuning in this morning. On the telephone line, I welcome to the program legendary bassist, co-founder of the music group Ozark Mountain Daredevils. I welcome in Michael Supe Granda. Michael, Brian C., honored to have you.
Yes, Brian C., you can call me Supe like all my other friends.
You got it, Supe. Yeah, no problem. Thanks for being here. Supe, I want to begin.
It's my pleasure, brother.
Yeah, no, you've been performing now for over 50 years. Let's go back to your very early years growing up in St. Louis. It was rock and roll, Chuck Berry, and others that caught your interest in music early, correct?
Yes. Well, actually, when I was in the 50s, before the Beatles came along, my crazy uncle came by with these Fats Domino, Little Richard, and Chuck Berry records. And when he played them, I watched our parties just skyrocket. And then I got infatuated with that music. And then when the Beatles and Stones came along, I said, well, these guys are doing the same thing. And then on whatever that date was in February 1964, I saw the Beatles on Ed Sullivan like all of us did. The very next morning, I started a band. And from February 1964 to July 2021, all I wanted to do was be in a band. So that gets us right up to the moment, my friend. Yeah, but it was rock and roll, St. Louis rock and roll, and just everything Chuck Berry and Keith Richards.
Now, was the bass the first instrument you picked up?
Yes, and I did that because I had a high school friend who played guitar, and he played guitar, and we had a Beatles book, and he would play the guitar, he would strum the chords, I would sing the songs and turn the pages. Turning the pages wasn't enough for me, and so we said, wait a minute, the Beatles have a bass player, so we need a bass player. So, guess who? Moi. So I went and got a bass, and ever since then, I've made my living playing bass, and still love it to this day.
Yeah. And I want to fast forward a little bit forward. A critical year for you, Supe. 1969. You moved from St. Louis to Springfield, Missouri,
Yep.
and you begin immersing yourself in the local music scene out there. How important was that relocational move for you at the time?
Well, the relocation was important for me because not only for music, but for life. You know, I was a 19-year-old kid, and, you know, just like all 19-year-old kids going off to college for the first time, I didn't know anything about anything. So I was developing academically in college, and I was developing personally as a person, and then I was developing musically as a musician. And I knew that music was my complete passion. So the first thing I did was I skipped my psychology class and went looking for other musicians, which I immediately found and immediately related to and immediately started collaborating with.
Now, during those years, 69, 70, and 71 in Springfield, from what I read, no one was writing their own music, their own songs. They were only doing cover material until you and guys came along and started doing that on the scene. Is that accurate to say?
That's exactly accurate. Exactly accurate. Yeah, the place it's a small town USA, just like a million other small towns USA. And everybody would get together, and there's a plethora of cover bands. Now, that'll only get you so far. And so the Daredevils, when they first started, we got together for the sole purpose of original songs, original music, and an original approach, which in 1971, when we got together, was unheard of in Springfield, and at the very beginning was not very accepted, popular. Everybody still wanted to go hear all the cover bands, but we decided to stick to our guns because we knew that, you know, our main goal wasn't to play the biggest prom in town. Our goal was to make a record. And we kept focused on that, and we knew that we could only make a record if we wrote our own songs. So we got together as a group of songwriters for that very singular purpose.
So now, let's talk about how the Daredevils got together again. From what I understand, there was a tape that was created at that period of time that was circulating the area, and it caught the ears of producer Glyn Johns of A&M, correct?
Well, actually, it caught the ear of David Anderle.
Okay.
David Anderle was the head of A&R at A&M Records. David Anderle and Glyn Johns were the best of friends, and at the moment they were looking to produce something together, just because they were such good friends, and they wanted to work on a project and just have some fun and work together and co-produce something. So our management company went out to A&M because they also managed Brewer and Shipley. So when they went out to Los Angeles to conduct some Brewer and Shipley business, at the end of the meeting, Stan and Paul said, "Oh, and by the way, we've got this demo tape of this band back in Missouri." And David Anderle put the tape in, and he listened to 2 songs, and he stopped the tape, picked up the phone, called Glyn Johns, and said, "Glyn, you know that band we've been looking to co-produce? I found them." And then David put the wheels in motion, and within a few weeks, Glyn Johns and David Anderle were going to produce our first album. It was as simple as that.
Now, the first album, was it the Quilt album?
Yes.
It was the Quilt album in 1973.
Yes. 73
All right.
73, 74, somewhere in there. Yeah.
And then you also recorded the eponymous debut album with Glyn Johns and David Anderle, correct?
Yes. Yep. We made that first album. Eponymous. That's a good word, man.
Eponymous. Yeah, it's a little difficult to say. Yeah, because I always get confused. I didn't know if the Quilt album was your first one or the eponymous.
Yes. Well, the Quilt album is the eponymous album, because the first album, the Quilt album, is entitled The Ozark Mountain Daredevils. Now, the second album that we recorded with Glyn and David, the album was entitled It'll Shine When It Shines. But the Quilt album is the eponymous first effort.
Gotcha. And then from reading the career of the band, you found yourselves on a plane on the way to London for 6 weeks, and some of you never been on a plane before, right?
Yeah, absolutely correct. You know, we met with Glyn and David, and Glyn said, we want to produce you guys. But Glyn wanted, because he was also engineering the album, he said, I want to work in the studio where I'm the most comfortable, which was Olympic Studios in London. So he says, would you guys mind flying over to London to record this record? And after we got done slobbering all over ourselves, we said, absolutely. So they flew us over, and we worked in the studio where Glyn felt the most comfortable.
So 1973, the first album was received very well by critics. It reached 26 in the U.S. Billboard 200, and you
Yep.
had the lead single of the album. If you want to get to heaven, which reached 25 in the U.S. Billboard 100. You want to talk a little bit about that first hit?
Well, we knew it was a hit. I mean, anybody who's ever heard that song for the first time knew it was a hit. You did, your engineer did, my mailman did, everyone did. It's that solid of a piece of work. And when it came out, when it started climbing the charts, I wasn't surprised because we knew how solid. So we knew it was happening. But when I heard it on the radio for the first time, I still had to pull over and stop shaking.
So that was the band's first hit, If You Want to Get to Heaven.
Yes,
and
sir.
Then your second hit, which we have a little mix that I'm going to play here now, and then we can discuss.
Sure.
Let's hear the band's second hit. Let's play it now.
I'm from St. Louis, I lived here all my life, so you know I like my baseball. Now let me tell you about my wife. I love the lady dearly, there's only one thing wrong, so I got out my trusty guitar and started writing this song. I met her across the river over in Illinois, sitting in a little coffee shop, talking to a little boy. They were looking at his baseball cards and his brand new baseball glove. When she looked up from the table, that's when we fell in love. She said, "Would you like to join us? Here, let me move my cap." She picked it up from my chair and she put it in her lap. When we all stood up to leave, all that I could see was two big blue eyes underneath a big red sea. I married a Cubs fan. I married a Cubs fan. I married a Cubs fan. I married a Cubs fan.
So you just heard the Ozark Mountain Daredevils, Jackie Blue, and I Married a Cubs Fan. And with us is Supe Granda. Supe, I want to ask you about Jackie Blue first.
Sure.
From what I understand, Johns thought that was a hit right away, correct?
When we cut the track, we laid down the backing track, and we all came into the recording truck, and we were all going to hear it back for the first time. So we're all sitting there, and Glenn plays the tape, and it bellows through the truck, boom, 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 and he puts a little mix on the song, and when the song is over, he turns around to us and says, "Gentlemen, that is a #1 song." Immediately. He knew it immediately. And it's very odd because it's kind of atypical of our sound. But the record company ran with it, And boy, did they run with it. Yeah, but we knew, see, there was another song, my friend, that we knew was solid, we knew was legitimate, and we knew would be successful. So when it also began climbing the charts, we weren't surprised because we had such confidence in our songwriting abilities.
I mean, Jackie Blue is a song that really stands the test of time. I mean, I hear it all the time here on the East Coast. It's definitely a classic. It's a great song. You're correct, though. It's a non-typical sound of the band.
Correct. But we enjoyed playing it. We play it to this day. And the people seem to like the diversity, because if we just came out with a bunch of banjos for 2 hours, that would be kind of weird. If we came out with, screaming guitars for 2 hours, that would be kind of weird. Our fans enjoy the diversity of our songs. So we play Jackie Blue right alongside a country rock song, and we've made it work for almost 50 years.
Yeah, there's no question about it. The band has a diversity of material from progressive rock, country rock, as you mentioned, southern rock, pop rock. From reading history of music during the 70s, they compare, I don't know if this is an accurate comparison, they compare the Ozark Mountain Daredevils to the Eagles. Do you think that's a fair comparison?
Yes and no. Yes, because we have a multi-lead singer approach. And two, yes, because we place more emphasis on vocal harmonies than we do flaming lead guitar calisthenics. Our sound is more acoustic-based. The Eagles' sound is more acoustic-based. So in several ways, the comparison is accurate. But then, the Eagles started to veer off into, a little bit harder stuff. And we just remained where we were, doing our deal. But now one of the main reasons for the comparison is Glenn Johns produced their first two albums, and he also produced our first two albums at around the same time period. So there were a lot of acoustic guitars flying around Glenn Johns' studio.
And around 1975, the band was touring with the Eagles. Is that right? You guys
we played a lot of gigs with them. We played a lot of gigs with them.
Any famous road stories you can share with us?
No.
So
it was the 70s. It was fun, We were making. The rule book hadn't been written yet, so we were just making up things as we were going along with our records. We were going, well, let's try this. We tried everything on our records, and then when we went out and played gigs, we said, well, let's try this song. And it was just a wonderful time period for music, and I'm not so sure that's ever going to happen again.
No, I don't think so. I mean, it's really surreal. 6 guys coming together, producing gold albums. It's a fantastic achievement, really.
Yeah, like I said, and then on top of that, we're from Missouri. The record company wanted us to move out to Los Angeles, but we resisted. We had 2-hit records, man. We could have got on the Sonny and Cher show. We could have got on Smothers Brothers. But instead, we decided to stay in Missouri, where our young families were swimming in clear streams and eating big, fresh, plump strawberries from the garden. I wasn't going to uproot my family so I could go on the Cher show.
Right, and then so the contract runs out with A&M. You sign with Columbia Records, Don Ellis.
Yes.
Talk about that period of the band's life.
Well, see, at that time, we had already had 2 hits. we resisted the record company's request to move to Los Angeles. The record company, we didn't really have any more mega hits like we had with Heaven and Jackie. So our contract ran out. We had gone from Learjets to airplanes to buses, and now we were traveling in a van. So everything was different. It was the end of the 70s, the 80s were starting, and we signed with Columbia. Don Ellis came out and signed us. We said, okay, he gave us our budget. We went in and recorded the record with John Boylan. When we turned the record in, from the time he signed us to when we turned the record in, he was no longer with the company. So we walked into Don Ellis's office with the finished record. And we said, where's Don? And they said, oh, no, we're sorry. We have a new guy. His name is Brandon, our Chad or something. And he didn't know who we were. So our record got placed on a pile of other albums that never really got the recognition or the push it deserved. So it just kind of laid there and floundered and went away. But that was a very strange time period, not only for the band, but for the music industry in general.
Yeah, and I have a few minutes left. I want to get these two questions in.
Yep.
If you can share the story of meeting Paul McCartney. You wrote a book called It Shined, and I believe you mentioned excerpts in that book on meeting Paul McCartney. Yep.
Oh, yeah. He came to Kansas City to play a concert. Kansas City is where our management, our managers were. They promoted the concert, and they asked Paul if we could meet him. We had been playing through Great Britain. Paul had a farm in Scotland. He heard that we were coming through. He heard the scuttlebutt when we had a very successful tour of England, of Great Britain, and he knew of our music through Glenn. Glenn had played him our music. He granted us a meeting after his concert, and it was only 10 or 15 minutes. But, I mean, to meet the man was just, good Lord, that's the pinnacle of the rock and roll pyramid, man.
Man, and if for the listeners listening to the program, if they want to pick up the book, you want to mention the book?
Yeah, the book is called It Shined. You can probably get it at, all the normal bookstores and online services. Or you can go to our website, the Ozark Mountain Daredevils.com. Find us on the interweb, and the book will be available there. Or you can go to my website and you can contact me personally, and I'll send you one, sell you one.
I want to ask you about the second song I played. I married a Cubs fan. I thought it'd be appropriate because I also do a sports show. Talk about that song.
Well, it's back here in the Midwest. One of the greatest rivalries in all of baseball. And by the way, I'm a huge baseball fan, more than all the other sports put together.
Nice.
The rivalry between the Cardinals and the Cubs is century old. It's storied. It's famous. And there are a lot of people in the corridor between St. Louis and Chicago who are in the same situation. The two spouses, one of them roots for the Cardinals, one of them roots for the Cubs, and it's not mean-spirited rivalry. It's a very friendly rivalry. The party moves from Busch Stadium to Wrigley Field every few weeks, and it's just a lot of fun. It was a fun song I recorded. There's also a video. If you go to YouTube, you can see a little Benny Hill-like video I made for I Married a Cubs Fan. But yeah, it's just a fun little song, and I put it out there just so guys like you could enjoy it.
I did. I really enjoyed it. Now, also, you've done a lot of solo stuff. I'll mention a few here. The Garbanzos, Soup and the Sandwiches, the Dog People, Soup du Jour. Talk a little bit about each if you can.
Yeah, well, Soup and the Sandwiches is a side project I have because when the Daredevils were working, there were 5 songwriters. That meant each songwriter got 2 songs are 3 on each album. Now, when you're a songwriter, you know that you write more than 2 songs a year. So Soup and the Sandwiches, the Dog People, the Garbanzos, Soup du Jour, those are all side projects of mine that I utilize to produce all the goofier songs that I write. So if somebody comes to see one of my performances, they know it's going to be goofy as a football bat, and it's going to be a lot of fun. And to this day, I still put a lot of time and effort into those little side projects. You can also find all about those on my website called Supeline, SUPELINE.com.
Well, Soup, listen, I appreciate it. They're telling me I have about 30 seconds left. Anything else you want to share to your fans?
I just want to thank every one of them for half a century of support. And I want every one of them to know that without them being there, I would not be here. How's that?
Great job this morning. I appreciate your time. Thank you so much.
You got it. And this is my number. Call me anytime, my friend.
Thank you very much. It was an honor.
You got it, buddy. Cheers.
Take care.
Yep.
That was Michael Supe Granda from the legendary group, the Ozark Mountain Daredevils. Again, you can purchase his book, It Shined, on Amazon, and you could search online. I'm sure you'll be able to find it. Great reading material. Thanks, Michael. Until next week, happy collecting to all.